today we are reading Killing Sacred Cows, and we are discussing chapter 9 through the end of the book. And chapter 9 talks a little bit about penny pinching and then the conclusion and all. So I will let David take it away. You can lead us,
Absolutely.
fearless leader.
Yes. So, like Laura said, the myth is a penny saved is a penny earned. Obviously, after reading this, a penny saved is not a penny earned. So this one, I'm not gonna lie. I feel like every time I read this, I feel like it's a slight attack. Because for me growing up, bargains and deals was the thing, right? That's how we saved money. That's how we ate. That's how we got all the stuff that we got. And then he also talks about, the whole DIY mentality. Man, when I got out of college, that was all I did. And so now, kind of like listening to the book, it's almost like, you can kind of look back on experience and think to yourself, honestly, all that time I wasted doing DIY projects. And then, a lot of the times with the bargaining, I feel like the way he was thinking about it, it makes sense, but not initially. Like, for instance, he kind of talks through he uses an example and he's like, you go to the store, you get a coupon and you end up saving $5 or $6. But you overspend because you're buying more of something because it's a bargain. You're kind of, saving on it. It's just like that extra little bit of money that you spent, you could have spent on something else. And I can't tell you how many times I've gone to Costco and not really needed something from Costco. And then shortly after, it's like, hey, this $20 charge that you need to pay. And I'm like, damn, I spent like an extra $40 at Costco. So as you guys were going through this chapter, was there anything that almost kind of felt like an attack or kind of felt like, well, I didn't really think of that as being a bad thing or like a myth until reading this book?
I felt like it described me to a T, my childhood and early adulthood, and until I met my husband. He fixed me. Now I can freely spend as much as I want. But prior to that, like pinching pennies and saving everything and buying, cheap, and paying for deals, like that was that I could relate. But then even like you said today, of going to Costco and buying the 20-pound bag when you probably only need half a pound, and that's a little eye-opening of what I do today, and I shouldn't do. And so he makes great points that you work so hard, cut all these coupons to save $5, but you overspend on $40 of product that you probably would have bought the off-brand on or not bought at all.
Right.
Had you not had that coupon.
Exactly.
Yeah. So for me, I had to laugh. I am not a big reality TV watcher. I'm not a big TV watcher, but every once in a while, if the Kardashians are on in my house, they will catch my eye. I just think they're so ridiculous. But Courtney, the one that was married to Scott Disick. This was like, I want to say back when she was still married to him. So this was like years and years ago. I've not seen the show in forever. But it was when clipping coupons got cool again. When we grew up, it was cool. And then I think for a long time, it became not cool.
Mm-hmm.
And then they started having like the digital coupons, and then like coupon books kind of came back, I guess, probably 10-ish years ago.
Mm-hmm.
And there was actually an episode where she just started being the coupon clipping lady to the point to where she had so much toilet paper. They created and who knows? Maybe they just went and bought the toilet paper, but they literally created a throne out of the boxes and containers of toilet paper and stuck her on it. It was like, stop. Like we don't need this. You're a millionaire. You're wasting money looking for these coupons because you're wasting your time and your effort and all of that kind of stuff. So it just kind of makes me laugh a little bit. But in our household, we have a rule. So either we have to love the project that we're doing to the point to where the value comes from the enjoyment, like we just did our backsplash, or hiring somebody has to cost us more than hiring ourselves if we're going to do a project. So like we had a bunch of exterior wood that just needed to be replaced on the house. And it was like a bunch of fascia. It was some trim around a door that I won't mention who ate when she was a puppy a few years ago. Which I, always got the eye from my husband. Hey, that needs to be fixed. And then there was like, I don't know, some trim and stuff. And obviously we didn't do that, right? Like it would have cost me a lot more to rent a ladder and to it wouldn't have felt like it cost more because the ladder probably would have been cheaper than $2,000. But the amount of time and the effort and the skill level that I don't have that would have taken me would not have been worth it. Whereas Craig and I took on the kitchen tile, but we weren't in a hurry. It didn't need to be done in one day. If I'd have pulled that facial off in one day, I would have needed to replace it to protect my house from the elements because what I saw up there was awful. I was a little embarrassed. I'm a realtor and I let the house be that bad. On the outside, it was some pretty bad deferred maintenance, but it's fixed now. And so that's kind of, how we judge things in our house. But it was actually an argument with Craig and I when we first bought the house. And it was one of my girlfriends who was like, Craig, how long will it take you to paint the garage? I don't know, 2 days. How much can you make in 2 days? What are they going to charge you? Go pay the $500.
Wow.
It's 2 hours of work, dude.
Right.
Go pay the $500 and go. And so I think that's kind of when it clicked. And so that's kind of been our rule ever since.
So I'm actually glad you shared that because the way he kind of talks about this in the book. So one of the things I thought was funny was, the Chinese proverb where he says a cheap price is basically a shortcut to being right. So and so then he kind of talks about what are some actual questions to ask yourself as you go and spend, as you save, as you make these decisions. And Lord, that's a key point because if you think about it, how much could you guys make in that amount of time? And if it's going to cost more to get it done, then maybe that makes sense. But if it doesn't, and how is it going to make you that much more productive? How is it going to make you more money? How is it, so there's so many different things that I think kind of get lost. And he's kind of given some things, outside of how much is it going to cost. Like one of the things, how productive will this make me? Does this economically make sense? What is this going to do for me? So I think that it's funny because as he goes through this, like I said, it feels like a personal attack, but it's because as he talks through it, it just all makes sense. And it's just like, well, David, maybe we should change that a little bit, So
well, I will tell you though, when you change that perspective, because I have a running joke in my house that my kids are growing up in a prison or a hospital because there's
right.
nothing on the walls, right? Like we moved in this fixer upper. And the first space that I wanted to take care of was outside.
Right.
And so we saved and we spent nothing on nothing else because things tripped. Like I'm not a things person, right? I'm awful at giving gifts. Closing gifts are the worst part of my job because I don't know what to buy anyone. I have 3 to buy this week and I'm like, I don't fucking know. Okay. I just don't know. But anyway, I'll tell you, when you shop like this, when you buy like this, and when you spend money like this, when I go on my deck and I look at my backyard 4 years later, like I love it. Like I love it. Like I love it. Like I love it. Like I love my children. I love it. Right. And it's funny, we just bought our first 2 items that we actually bought for the house for like legitimate house decorations, right? You'll see it coming on Facebook. 2 things. Took us 4 years to buy like legitimate, like we are actually decorating a space because we've renovated enough. Was a sign, one of them is a sign that says porch therapy.
Oh, good.
And it's above the porch, right? The doors to go out, of course, right? You'll see it soon. And the other one was a table that we got from the consignment or from the flea market. I actually may have posted both of those on Facebook, maybe already. But again, like Craig and I walked past that table and it like I would have paid more for it. I mean, we looked at something that was $250. We looked at something that was $25. I mean, we looked at the gamut of things and like shopping like this, like I walked past that table and it looks like a granny's table. It looks like a very old, almost a mid-century-ish kind of look to it, which we don't decorate in mid-century, but it just worked in that space for both of us. And we loved it. And it happened to be the one that was $25. And I love it just as much as if I would have spent the 250. And then we're very excited because we finally picked out stools. And same thing, like it's not about the dollar amount that we're spending, because we looked at $100 stools and we looked at $600 stools and we settled at 250. And so it's you love what you buy and you enjoy it, I think, so much more, because you really do look at the value of the item internally.
Right.
That's
Plus, I
good
think it makes you really think about purpose. I feel like a lot of the times, you know, we'll just purchase things, especially on this, you know, it's cheap. Get it for a bargain, you know, and it's like I always use the rationale, oh man, I've been wanting that for like forever. Well, yeah, but you don't want it anymore, you know? And so it's just like sometimes you buy that stuff and then a week later you forgot you have it. You know, and it's like I think if you really ask these questions, your point, Laura, I mean, a lot of this stuff becomes a lot more valuable to you. You know, and it's just nice having like valuable stuff in your home, you know? So one more thing I wanted to mention on this chapter as well, he kind of talks about savers as hoarding value, which it's funny. I feel like I'm starting to kind of reframe that mindset for myself. But for me, I've always been a very big saving person. And when you think about it, it's like, yeah, you have a bunch of cash sitting around, but what does that do for you? Benefit from it? It doesn't benefit anybody else. You're just hoarding it, you know? So, Natalie, I'm sorry, I cut you off. Were you about to say something?
Oh no, you're okay. One of the things that he said was how price is the number one factor for people for buying things, and
Right.
and that's, you know, like Laura walking through how she purchased items that she absolutely loves. And it made me think about, I've lived in, you know, 4 or 5 new houses, and we had to buy furniture for each of those houses. And most of the time you sort everything, and I still do today, you sort lowest price to highest price and you start there. And try
Exactly.
to
Yep.
sit on all of them until you find one that's comfortable enough that you're in a good price range still, and as opposed to just buying the one that you're gonna love. And
Right.
oh sorry.
I was gonna say, you just said a key word, comfortable enough,
Yeah.
right? We settle for that enough. That was such a, like, sorry, I didn't mean to cut you off as well, but that was like a really good point.
Yeah.
Right.
And now we have a bunch of crappy coaches that we've had to have over the years, and that we just settled on. One of the other things that he was saying is that once you get to the point where like you want something, I want that, you know, new dining table or new car, or whatever it might be, but you say but it's too much. So instead of saying, why can't I buy this with, you know, why don't I have enough money to buy this? I loved how he said, how can I get enough money to buy this?
Exactly.
And that was one of my big pulls from that chapter or myth.
Exactly. Yeah, you actually took the words out of my mouth.
I'm sorry.
So you're good. You're good. So as far as so something happened to me recently that kind of, as he was talking about that, it made me think about that. Laura, you kind of have some insight into this. So I've been looking for a new software for my internal to kind of like really a CRM to kind of get all of my clients' data. And you know, there's so much confidential information, just kind of keeping it all locked down. And so I had a call with somebody, and they were kind of going through, they were explaining the product, and I was like, this actually seems like the right product. You know, long story short, there was a portion that ended up making it not. But the guy told me the price, and immediately I was like, "Oh wow!" You know, I'm not saying it's not worth it. I'm just saying I don't have it. You know, and the money ended up not becoming an issue. The guy sat on the phone with me for 30 minutes trying to figure out what would actually work. And we came up with some options that were actually feasible. Like I said, the software just at the end of the day just ended up not being exactly what I wanted. And so it just makes me think, okay, well, you've got so many people out there focusing on the price. Well, I wonder how many people are actually focusing on the value, and then finding, okay, well, yeah, they said the price was this. By the time we got down to it, this is what the actual price was. So I don't know. This just made me think of that, and it's like that's one additional reason I feel like we shouldn't just be looking at price, because if it's the right product and is bringing the right value, a lot of the times it just works. You can make it work. So,
well, it's one of the things that took me so long to hire you, and Louie and Ethan and I got a really good laugh on team meeting on Monday when we started shifting our conversations from an office manager to a true marketing manager, like Brian Coy, like the same way Kyle Whistle set up. Like that's how we're going to start moving. I want a counterpart, and I want it to be like a Kyle that understands the back end of stuff. But we were laughing because Louis was like, "Are you okay with paying for ClickUp? It's $7 or $12 or whatever the price is per person." I said, "Louis, do the math." I said, "That's cheaper than YouTube." Because it was like, I don't know, like $700 for the year or something.
Right.
I was like, that's literally cheaper than y'all.
Right.
And it replaces like 12 of you. Like, yes, we're going to pay for ClickUp because but I was, I was afraid of the cost to get all of this started and this ball rolling. And it's like, what you plus ClickUp are going to cost me will cost me less than one of their salaries for a year. And I couldn't have paid a manager that. And now I can get to the next hire faster.
Exactly.
Wow.
Exactly. Awesome. So last part of the book. So he kind of talks about the 401k, and then also he kind of talks about eating myths. So, in that chapter, he actually kind of prefaces, obviously he didn't hit every myth. He just kind of hit some of the big ones. But here, I think he really kind of dives into kind of like what he starts to talk about in myth 9, really just asking questions, right? Don't just take it, but don't take the advice blindly, obviously, understand most importantly what you want. And then on top of that, just assess the value proposition. You really understand the value proposition, it makes sense and adds value to you. A lot of time, that's really all you need to know. So, in him saying that there are like some myths outside of here that obviously he didn't really get into, is there anything you guys kind of think that, maybe could have been added to this book, or, anything even that, could be a takeaway for you guys from this?
I am afraid that any next books that we buy is going to counteract with what he told us in these books. That we're going to go down the opposite, or go follow the myth, and then that's the guidelines that the author tells us to do, and go invest in that 401k, because I've already seen that where like his 401k hoax, and everything that he has said about it in that little short section, I've thought about. I'm like, okay, well, I'll just keep, I'll take out all the extra money I'm putting in and just only do the match. And he's like, oh, you think that's a good idea to just do the match? Like, oh crap.
Right.
And I've seen where, I just saw something yesterday where it was advice to, things that I don't know, something in 401k was on that list. You should do it because it's advice. Oh, it was something where if there's a max on how much you can put into it, it must be something good. And 401k is, you can only max it out at, you can only put in 18.5 in a year. So they assume that must be good. And so I'm afraid that any next books, you almost have to pre-screen it to make sure it doesn't counteract any of these myths that he gave us. But then one last note too, I felt that the section before the 401k hoax, where he kind of scanned all the different myths, I felt it was a really good summary of the book, and also something that you could just listen to or reread if you need one of those kick your butt speeches to inspire you to, get off the couch, or to go do what you want, and take your money out of that 401k and start that new business or whatever it might be.
Right. I agree. He does do a really good job of like almost getting you kind of motivated to do, right? You make this new system.
Yep.
Laura?
Well, I'm glad we read it. I don't have any additional myths that I really thought of, but for me, like, this book was really good because I connected it 100% with his way of thinking. And to Natalie's point, I think a lot of these books that we read, you have to take the meat that's good for you and throw away the fat and the bones that are not, right? Like, because, you know, as I tell people that I coach, like, don't copy me. Look at what I do and figure out how to make that you, right? If you come out of the shoot looking at your clients and saying some of the stuff that comes out of my mouth, like, that doesn't work for everybody. Like, it will feel very unnatural, right? For some people to say some of the things that come out of my mouth. But it works for me. It works for who I am. And I think these books are very similar to that, right? You take from them what is right for you and you disregard the rest, because, you know, we all go through the same system growing up. We all go through the school system, and whether it's private school or public school, the objective at the end is the same, right? The government requires everybody to go through it so that we are good militant workers at the end. And there's, you know, 20% of us, 10% of us spin off and create the businesses instead of, you know, the government controls us one of two ways. Either they control us with taxes and we produce all the jobs and all the income and we make the opportunity, or we go become a worker for those people. And the government's in control of creating both sides of that personality. But I think that these books are just books that help those of us that kind of see the opportunity out there. But I just connected with him completely because it was 100% on focus with how I think. Because not all the books are, right? You know, and some people, like, a 401k is perfect for them, right? The idea is so smothering of being an entrepreneur and having to create instead of consume, that they mentally and physically couldn't handle it. So on one hand, it's good that there is that path and that there at least is something in place that they're taught. So no, that's my thoughts, but I connected well with the book and I thought it was very in line with my way of thinking.
Sweet.
The neat thing I thought too was that he, at the end there, he said, you know, we're all working very hard for our retirement, but, you know, what does that retirement look like? And he made a good point. Like, I don't have a clear picture of what retirement looks like, other than I'm not working my 9-to-5 job or whatever it might be, you know, doing something that you love and traveling or whatever. But I think it's important that no matter what stage of your life, you should have that vision of what your retirement's going to be, so that when you achieve that, you're not afraid of it and you're prepared for it too. So one of my outtakes is definitely to talk to my husband and, you know, let's draw that picture of what our retirement will look like when we get there.
Right.
And it can always change, but at least we know what it is today.
Right.
And you know what it looks like, so you know when you've made it.
Yeah.
I think that's the biggest question to a lot of people, is like, how do I really know I've made it?
Right. Chasing after something you don't even know what it is.
Exactly. You just really want it.
Exactly.
Whatever
Exactly.
it is.
Awesome.
Right.
Sweet.
David, what did you get out of the book?
Yeah,
Yes.
so for me, it's the self-insurance. I used to just have a very low priority over insurance, especially life insurance. And I always just focused on term, right? I never really understood why you would get a whole life policy. You know, but kind of going through here, it's just access to capital, right? It's a way for you to continue to produce. So, but yeah, so that's kind of my biggest takeaway there. I'm actually currently working on Lexi and I's like exposure, kind of finding out exactly how much insurance we can have to cover our risks and whatnot. So that's my biggest takeaway from the book, honestly.
Yes, we will be working on ours as well, because we are set up womp womp.
Yeah. Yeah. I'm doing the same. So,
I'm glad something's there in the interim. If
right.
something unforeseen happens, there's
Right. Exactly.
womp,
But it
womp,
there's always improvement. There's always improvement. So.
Yeah, definitely.
Yes.
Awesome. What's the next book?
Yeah, so I've been looking at different topics and trying to kind of expand our horizon. I don't know if you guys are feeling it a little bit about the focus of money and taxes and being so heavy lately with a lot of our books. And I was afraid of this one because I thought it was gonna be, again, heavy on taxes and money, and it kind of was, but I'm glad we read it for sure. So I'm hoping to maybe find something, another self-help guiding book. So I've been going through lots of ideas, and just seeing, like one was only 120 pages, so that would have been a short guide, but another one was like 11 hours. But I didn't know if Laura, maybe if you don't mind sharing your compiled list with me, and I can do some.
I would be happy to.